Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports show for November 8th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. We have a phenomenal show for you planned today. It's going to be the Gino show, basically. Gino's going to be stopping by, talking NFL. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the Colts, also talking about week 9, what we thought about week 9 and everything, and some bets to lock in for week number 10. Before we see what Gino has in store for us at the horse racing track, we are presented by PointsBet. If you're looking for a dependable sports book, download the PointsBet app. Your first deposit, you'll get 100% match up to $2K. Use promo code ETOFT21. That's ETOFT21. Now, let's see what Gino's got cooking for us tomorrow on the track.
Got our best bet coming up for Wednesday over at Indiana, Horseshoe, Indianapolis, using the daily racing form past performances, as always, that you can get at drf.com. I'm looking at the number 3 in here, Coppola, who's coming out of a much tougher race at Keeneland last time out. It was a really tough spot where there was a lot of early speed in there, and you'll notice you can pull the replay up right here using your daily racing form formulator PPs. Coppola's the 6th in the race that we were going to watch last time out. Didn't have the best of beginnings, and then sort of had to rush up to press the pace. So watch the 6 horse not away very quickly here, and kind of has to rush up in between horses, kind of use a lot of energy just to get up into second, pressing in a race with a good amount of speed, a race where the winner came from way, way out of it. I just don't think there's that much speed on paper in here. It looks like a couple horses to the outside of Coppola, in particular. The 5 Tappet Spirit might be the other real quick horse in here. But I think Coppola should be in that top group, either on the lead, sitting second or third at most. Those first 2 starts were very impressive. And he just ran into a group that was a little bit too tough last time out. Coppola is the play for me, 9-2 on the morning line. Anything over 3-1 feels like fair value there over on Wednesday at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. That's race number 7. We're looking at the number 3, Coppola.
Make sure to lock that bet in, guys. I am on Gino's podcast every single Friday morning, Thursday night, whenever it comes out. Him and I are going to be talking NFL after NFL is over. Then we're going to transition talking NBA. Now, without further ado, let's welcome to the guy I probably talked to one of the most in my life, my boy Gino, to the show. Gino, how you doing today, my man?
Doing well, buddy. Fun time now, and lots going on in the world of sports to talk about. Always happy to help you out anytime you need.
My first question is, was that you that won the billion?
I love you, but I probably wouldn't be on right now if that was me. So I would have taken a week off and I'd have been on with you next week. But it definitely was not me. But Altadena is like literally 2 miles from where I went to high school. So a lot of people that I know live in that area too, which is kind of funny. So it was right there. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that was over the summer was like 2 suburbs over where I'm in the Chicagoland area. So for those watching for the first time, basically what the show is, whoever's on with me, we talk about what happened the week before, then we tell you guys some bets to lock in. But obviously a big thing happened yesterday. Frank Wright was fired by the Colts. They're bringing in Jeff Saturday. They don't have a play caller. They just promoted Park Frazier, who 3 years ago was Frank Wright's personal assistant, as the play caller. A lot going on there. What do you take about that?
So this was the first time since 1960 a coach has been hired as a head coach of an NFL team without any prior NFL or college coaching experience. He's been coaching a high school, a prep high school. And what's crazy is this is a staff that actually has former head coaches on their staff. They very easily could have had one of their head coaches step up. I know you're going to point out Reggie Wayne is another person who they could have gone to, but the move is really bizarre. And another point you hit on, they don't have anyone that's ever called plays at the NFL level here. This is not a move in order to win. Now, I think this move says a couple things. Like, I truly think Jim Irsay likes Jeff Saturday, right? The head coach of the Colts. Like, he really likes him. Mm-hmm. I think you wouldn't have been able to hire Jeff Saturday as your coach to start and be in a full season, right? I don't think you could do that without giving him a look. So he's giving him a look, but this is really for tanking purposes, right? I mean, this is the decision that they made a few weeks ago, which you pointed it out. Why would they have said we're going to Sam Ehlinger for the rest of the year for sure? It doesn't make any sense. They were 3-3-1 at that time. They were still right in the mix in their division and for a playoff spot. And now the last 2 weeks we've seen Ehlinger has looked absolutely miserable. So they're dead last in EPA per play since they've made the switch to Sam. Just 35% of their plays have graded successful. They had 1.9 yards per play on Sunday. That was the lowest for a Colts team since 1977. They were 0 for 14 on third down. They were sacked 9 times. They had a late pick 6 in the game. They had 121 yards of total offense. That was the fewest total yards of offense in a game this season by any team. The previous low was 161 by the Texans. So they scored 40 yards less than the next lowest game. This was the fewest in a game by the Colts since week 3 of 1997, which was the year before they drafted Peyton Manning. I mean, just looking at where they're set up right now, they're tanking, and mocks that I'm looking at have them still drafting sort of in the middle because of where they are. Will Levis is someone that they look to be targeting, right? Do you think that this is a team that they got to go out and get their quarterback now? Because they've done the same thing the last few years, right? It was Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, and it's not working. They got to go get their own guy.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of hit the nail on the head. They have to get the quarterback position right. You look at this team. This team is too talented to be in the position there, and they got Jonathan Taylor, they got Pittman, Pierce, a good number 2. Offensive line has been a disappointing this year, but they got Nelson, who's good, and look, dude, Ryan Kelly, who's their center, awful what happened to his kid. His head's obviously not into it. So, I'm going to give that guy a pass, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got DeForest Buckner, you got Shaq Leonard. This team is totally underperforming, but it goes back to me, Andrew Luck. They didn't take care of Luck. You have a franchise quarterback, once-in-a-lifetime talent. You didn't take care of the offensive line, got too beat up, and he retired, and he could just completely set this franchise back.
Because it happened so abruptly, right? It wasn't like they were able to trade Andrew Luck, right? Or get something of value for him. It just sort of abruptly happened. And then all of a sudden, every year you're trying to play fix it. And that's what's worked twice for the Colts. It was be really bad, get Peyton Manning, be really bad, get Andrew Luck. And that was when their team has been the best and the most competitive when they've had those star quarterbacks. That's how every franchise is. You need the guy, back there that you can count on. They don't have that. This is bizarre. I mean, if this team, you and I are talking on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
As of Monday, they didn't know who was going to be calling the plays.
Yep.
And so Tuesday is your run through day on most teams, right? Tuesday is the day where they go through the game plan at practice. So yesterday, Jeff Saturday was figuring out by the end of the night, Monday night, who was going to be calling plays. So that means whoever it was had to stay up the whole night and put together a game plan to then have the team look at today and get ready for the next 2 days. How behind are they going to be?
You're just constantly behind. And honestly, how do you feel if you're Reggie Wayne? Before Reggie Wayne came on the staff, they made him be a volunteer assistant coach. Reggie Wayne, one of the best wide receivers ever to play the game, in the Colts Ring of Honor, on the Hall of Fame ballot next year. They made him be a voluntary assistant for 3 years before he could be a coach, wide receiver coach. Then you went outside the room to hire Saturday. Then you bring in this guy that was Frank Wright's assistant to be calling plays. To me, this just screams disorganization.
Yeah.
And
one question for you, because this is going to be miserable. They play this weekend. They play the Raiders, right? This isn't even like this is on a bye week.
Yeah.
They have a game this week. Now, let's just kind of flip it around for 1 second. I know we're talking more about the Colts, but if the Raiders lose this game,
you got to fire McDaniels right away, right? Like, you can't lose to a team that has a guy that's never coached a game.
Oh
And
no,
right, like
you're
if
out.
you
You
if
have
you're
to
the
fire.
Raiders and you lose to this team this week, that's
You're
got
out.
to be it for you, right?
You're done. And you've mentioned it before that when we for those who don't know, Gino and I do a stream Sunday morning on BTV every 11 a.m. Eastern. And you've mentioned how McDaniels has had multiple meetings already with the coach. And my thought process is this: he caught a lot of flack when he left. He took the job at Indianapolis.
Remember that? Yeah.
Left. Maybe he just saw what was going on
and he heard with the owner. It just wasn't a place where he wanted to be.
And then he decides to leave. Maybe that's what happened, because the whole situation was really weird.
That was bizarre. And the two teams this weekend that will play that are not doing well, but the Raiders are going to be like a touchdown favorite or so.
Yeah, they're 6.5 right now.
Because how could you back a Colts? I mean, honestly, if it gets to over 7, I might just do it for the hell of it. But this team might look like the Urban Meyer Jags team from last year.
Or they might calling plays is like McVay Jr. and they're just an offensive shit.
Like, who knows? Who knows? You know, you're absolutely right. But the only problem is that I would feel so much better if Matt Ryan was just back there, right? Yeah. Like a guy Matt Ryan's had to call plays, I'm sure, before in his career, right? Like he's been in situations where the earpiece goes out, he's in a hostile environment, or he's got to call audibles. If you're stuck with someone like a veteran quarterback who can at least have an idea of what might work, but yikes, this is going to be scary this weekend.
It's going to be brutal. Now let's talk about, we each have a couple candidates, we'll alternate. Who's one of your first candidates for the job?
Yeah, Kellen Moore. I think it's been a really good year for the Cowboys. We always continue. We've heard his name sort of pop up over the last few years. And I think every time, the real key with this job is, like I was saying, I don't think they're that far away, right? This isn't a bad job if you know that you're going to come in and be able to kind of pick your quarterback. If you have like a top, like maybe you're picking around 8, 9, 10, you may be able to go out and get one of your guys, and maybe a young Kellen Moore type will feel like, hey, I can go start there. I can go get a young quarterback and we can grow together for a few years. Dallas has done a fantastic job this year. You know what? They did a really good job when Dak got hurt, like putting a young quarterback in a spot to succeed, leaning on their defense, running the ball a little bit too. I think he could be he's always one that you hear pop up when names, as a name for interviews.
My first one, Harbaugh, Jim, Michigan coach, former Colts player. He almost left to go to the Vikings. The big rumor is he does want to get back into the league to try to get that Super Bowl that his brother has, because those two are ultra competitive. I think it just kind of makes sense for him.
It fits, right? That's a really good fit.
So my first one's Harbaugh. Who's your second?
I would have given Harbaugh as one of my 3, but when I looked at your 3 in the write-up, I wanted to give 3 different ones, so we could all talk a little different. My next one's sort of the same as the first one, but it's Eric Bieniemy, Kansas City offensive coordinator. But you've been kind of pointing out too, he doesn't really interview very well, reportedly, because he's gotten a lot of looks through the years, and we saw him and Mahomes kind of clash this year one time on the sidelines, and Andy Reid had to kind of step in a little bit. That didn't look great just overall for, I think, his, like, the vibe of him as a head coach when you're sort of clashing on the sidelines with a guy like Mahomes. But, he's been a name that's popped up over and over and over again. You feel like one of these years, one of these teams is going to give him a look, is going to give him a shot. I wouldn't be surprised. He's always on that list of like 5 that, should be getting interviews.
Yeah, he makes sense. I'm shocked he hasn't gotten one yet, to be honest with you.
Because it feels like there's got to be a reason why, right? Like,
there was an incident when he was at Colorado.
Okay,
so maybe that's it.
It still stayed with him a little longer. Yeah.
My next one, Jonathan Gannon. He's the DC of the Eagles, only 39. He's worked with 4 different clubs. Eagles are one of the most improved units in the NFL. And the leap that has happened with them this year. They went from like 20th DVOA. They're like 2 right now. Great unit. And he's built a great scheme, and he's able to generate pressure without blitzing. And when you have a Leonard and a DeForest Buckner, that's really key. My only worry is he's a defensive guy. You have to bring in that offensive guy that can develop whoever is at quarterback, whoever they end up drafting. That's my next guy. Who's your last guy?
Last one, Sean Payton. Sean Payton's in a situation where he's going to be able to pick his spot. He can come back probably wherever he wants to come back, whenever he wants to come back. Now, the Colts' overall roster isn't far away, but like I said, for them, it looks like they're going to draft a quarterback. Does he want to do that? Does he want to be on a real rebuilding type situation? Because if you have a young quarterback, you're probably not going to win right away. It'll probably take a little bit. Does he like that idea? Coming in, getting the opportunity to, pick your guy right out of college and have a guy that he can have a relationship with, like he did, Drew Brees, a great quarterback that he had great success with all those years. I don't know if this is his spot, but any jobs, you're going to hear that name as probably the most high-profile name for jobs that he feels like a guy that can take teams that are close and get them over the hump. I'm just not sure, kind of like looking at the way the league may set up this year. I don't know how many of those teams might be out there. Like, I'm not sure which coaches. I don't know. Could you see like Stefanski maybe getting fired if the Browns don't play well? I don't know. Could he go somewhere like that? I'm just sort of looking around. Maybe the Chargers. Maybe he waits there if they struggle. I could see him maybe going there somewhere with Staley. But that could be a decent spot for him if he says, you know what? Yeah, I can go pick my QB.
Yeah. Plus with the division, I mean, those teams are
weak division, right? You're always putting yourself right in striking range.
Yep. My last one, Shane Walden, OC for the Seahawks. He's coached under Carroll McVay, picked up stuff from them. With what he's done offensively with the Seahawks, starting 2 rookie tackles, Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker, he's going to be a hot name this offseason. I think he would be a good guy. And you just kind of see it's all about quarterback play. He's able to get this out of Geno Smith when no one else was able to. Give him a young quarterback. That's pretty tempting in my eyes. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shift over to takeaways and talk about what our takeaways are. We're just going to have 3 takeaways. I'll let Gino lead off. Gino, what is your first takeaway? Oh, Gino, your mic's muted.
Packers are in serious trouble, Eric. Last week was supposed to be a spot against the Lions where we liked your Lions team, but you felt like the Packers offense should at least have been able to score some points in that game. And if they were going to lose to the Lions, it would have been in a shootout, because heading into last week, they scored 9 points against the Lions team that was allowing 32.1 points per game and was dead last in the league. Now, the next 3 games, they play the Cowboys, the Titans, and the Eagles, all of which have top 10 scoring defenses. This Packers team, it's not like one thing you point at either. The wide receivers are bad, ugly routes being run. Rodgers being stubborn with the throws and the reads. There was a bad throw that bounced off the head of a Lions defender and right off the helmet of one of your Lions defenders. He threw 3, right? That was pretty funny. It popped right up off of him. He threw 3 interceptions, which was the second time in the last 5 years he's thrown 2 or more interceptions in a regular season game. It's only the 5th time in 18 years he's thrown 3. And it was the first time in his career that he threw 2 interceptions in the red zone. In the first half, they had 260 total yards. They ran 32 plays. They had 0 points. It was like, it's bizarre.
It was weird. It was a real weird half. And they just kept on shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, they should have easily won that game.
They have 10 wide receiver drops, which is tied for 4th most in the league right now. And the thing about them, there's only 2 teams in the NFC that have a worse record than them. 2. Right now, they're the 12th seed out of 16 teams, and there's 3 other teams that they're tied with that they have the same record with. It's not like they're even better than them. There's literally 2 teams they have a better record than. And the issue is, Eric, like I mentioned, their schedule coming up, their 5-game losing streak, Giants, Jets, Commanders, Bills, and Lions.
Yeah, those aren't world beaters.
We're not talking about the murderer's row here. Yeah, this team's in some serious trouble, and you sort of wonder, like, you can't just turn it on all the time. You can't just flip the switch. Bobby, core power, baby. You know it, baby. I have everything USC of always. Yeah, I mean, off season, you're not there. You think you can just sort of slide right in. You don't have any other wide receivers. Apparently, they wanted to get Waller and Claypool. They couldn't get either one of them. And now they're stuck. I mean, they're stuck. Aaron Jones got banged up last week, too. I think he should be fine. Or even if not, like, Dylan is okay. But
yeah,
they're in a bad spot.
Could LaFleur be out of a job?
Could Rodgers be gone and be somewhere else next year?
Well, I mean, it makes you think, like, this is everything's been hunky-dory for LaFleur and Rodgers. This is the first real year where there's been kind of conflicty.
Yep.
But then you can't say, like, Adams is a missing piece because the Raiders are even worse than they are.
I know.
So it's
and honestly, let's say that, like, the wide receivers have been some of the problem. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been great either. He hasn't been great. He looked like a guy who took off a lot of time, wasn't taking it seriously, wasn't going through, like, all the reps in training camp. He doesn't really have that he could do that with Adams around, because him and Adams know each other so well. Like, he could close his eyes and complete a 3rd and 5 to Adams. But now he doesn't have that with anyone. He's trying to get it with Lazard. He kind of has it with Cobb, but Cobb is done. Like, physically, Cobb doesn't have much. Like, he can't even get open a lot of the time. So
he's on IR right now. He's not.
I know. And so when you don't have those two, you could see he starts forcing it to Tanyan, because that just becomes like a safety valve there. They're in serious trouble.
Spear22, are the Jets really legit? Is Wilson really the guy? My answers are no and no.
No Wilson. I don't know about legit, but the game last week definitely made me more impressed by their defense. I think defensively, and you know what? I'm becoming a little bit more impressed with Saleh as a coach. I think he's doing a good job getting these guys to play for him. I don't know if the Jets can go win a playoff game or anything like that. They absolutely need better quarterback play. I think I have no faith at all in Zach Wilson whatsoever. But last week was a good week for them, just showing, like, that was a tough spot after, like, a really bad loss to the Patriots the week before. That felt like, for some teams, you could have kind of curled up in a ball after that.
Yeah, he did a great job of getting him ready to play.
Right, getting him ready to play last week against the Bills. So that at least showed me a little bit about their staff. And yeah, legit wouldn't be a word I would say, but you know what? They're impressing me. They're a lot better than I thought they would be.
My first takeaway: Cliff Kingsbury totally cost the Cardinals. Seahawks have been great this year.
Cliffy.
The thing is, though, they give up 98 yards a game to the opposing running backs, 4.3 yards per carry. Entering the fourth quarter, James Conner had 4 carries for 19 yards. 4 carry, like, you're still getting a good average. You're still moving the ball. Then in the fourth quarter, he had 3 carries for 26. That's 6.4 yards a carry for the game, and you're only giving him 7 carries. By Conner running the ball, what does that do? It makes the RPO more viable, makes the play action more viable, easier to get the ball out to Hopkins, Ertz, Moore, everything. Takes pressure off of the offensive line, keeps the defense on the sidelines. He totally abandoned the run, and it didn't make any sense to me, because that was a back and forth game for the first 3 quarters. Seahawks pulled away like last 10 minutes of the fourth. But I was high on this team when Blackjack was on a couple weeks ago. I gave out the Cardinals to make the playoffs as a future. After what I saw last week, completely off. Cliff cost them that game, and now they go on the road to face the Rams. And I think McVay is like
11 of 12. I think they've beat them 11 of 12 times this.
So bad loss by the Cardinals, and Cliff's going to be on his way out. Maybe someone goes there. Maybe Peyton goes there. Maybe he's like, oh, I got Murray, I got D-Hop, I got Ertz, I got Moore, I got some weapons. Maybe that's where he goes. That would make sense. Arizona's not a decent place to live, man.
You're right. That's not a bad spot because I think Peyton will show up somewhere in the next year or two. I think it's just like picking and choosing the spot. And yeah, this team, the marriage there with you got to make a decision, and you're not getting rid of Kyler.
No, you just
right?
give him money.
So you're getting rid of Cliff.
Yeah, he's gone. He's got to be gone after this year. Second takeaway. What are you looking at?
There's two teams that I just want to keep playing against because I know they're not as good as their records might suggest, or like the box scores when you look at some of their games. The first one is the Vikings. You know, you have this Vikings team that's 7-1, and you dive into their schedule week by week. You know, Green Bay in week 1. Now all of a sudden that win doesn't look good at all. And Green Bay was without Bakhtiari and another offensive lineman. Week 2, they played another good team, like the only other good team really they played all year, and they got crushed by the Eagles 24-7. Week 3, they're getting beat by the Lions. They come all the way back. They beat the Lions by 4 late in the game. Week 4, they're playing New Orleans in London. New Orleans is without a bunch of key skill position players. New Orleans keeps giving the Vikings like incredible field position all game. The Vikings win by 3. Against Chicago, Chicago's got the lead in that game, and the Vikings come back and win by a touchdown. They play a Miami team that doesn't have Tua. You know, like you go through each of their games, and their schedule is not that tough. They beat Arizona last week in an 8-point game where they couldn't put Arizona away, and Arizona kept having chances to tie that game.
Muff punt. That's what broke it open.
And then last week, they're down by 10 in the fourth quarter with like 6 minutes to go in the game, and they drive, kick a field goal. All Washington has to do is just not commit a really bad turnover, and Heineke throws an awful turnover. The Vikings drive all the way down, and it puts them in like, you know, the 15 to go score a touchdown. And then on top of that, Washington was going to get the ball back with like 1:50 left to go when the Vikings kicked a field goal to go up by 3. And Washington committed a penalty on the field goal. So the Vikings were able to just run the clock out, and they didn't even get a chance. It's like every single thing is bouncing the way of the Vikings. I cannot continue. They have one win over a team with the winning record, and that was against the Dolphins, who were starting a third-string quarterback in that game. One. And I mean, like that's...
Yeah, it's just, I've been low on this team. You know, I'm going to continue to fade them. You know, Commanders covered the 4 that, you know, cover the 3.5 that was given out on the show. So, yeah, I'm going to continue. I agree 150% with you.
And the thing is, it's kind of crazy, is sometimes you can see there are seasons where teams get lucky. We're talking about, you know, we were asked a question about the Jets. You dive into the Jets schedule, they've had a lot of that too, right? They've caught teams good weeks where teams were banged up or injured, and they've had to deal with that. But who does Minnesota play this week? The Bills. And Josh Allen might be banged up, right? So, like, if they beat the Bills with a banged-up Josh Allen, that might look like a really good win. And now all of a sudden you're like, dang, things really are playing out. They have a 4.5 game lead in the division right now.
It's brutal. I mean, I don't even know who Case Keenum.
Yeah, is the Bills' backup quarterback.
Yeah.
4.5 game lead. That is the biggest division lead held by a team through week 9 since the 49ers had a 5-game advantage back in 2011. So over 10 years.
And the Vikings are going to lose first round. I'm calling it right now.
Absolutely. I'm going to play against them. No doubt about it. I'm going to play against the Patriots too. Like along the way, you start to dive into their games. Last week, they got to play against Sam Ehlinger. This is not a good Patriots team right now. And you keep diving in, like you look in their games, and they're not a good football team. They had 3 sacks. Mac Jones struggled. This year, he's ranked 32nd in DYAR. He was 12th last year. He's ranked number 52 in Pro Football Focus passing grade out of 58 quarterbacks that have taken dropbacks this year. And you know what's funny? Last week was the first game this year that he didn't throw an interception. He still was ranked 23rd out of 29 quarterbacks on the week.
That's brutal. He's just not getting it done.
No, in the last 2 weeks, they've kicked 9 field goals. They kicked 4 field goals this week. They kicked 5 last week. They did not have one drive longer than 42 yards. They would have lost against any team that wasn't the Colts with Ehlinger there. They blocked a punt deep inside Colts territory that turned into a touchdown. They got a long punt return. They got a long kickoff return that set up short field positions, and they hit 4 field goals. And the Colts missed a field goal right before the halftime.
Yeah, they're just. Do you think that has to do with the fact that Joe Judge and Matt Patricia are developing him?
I honestly, I think I've never been that high on Mac Jones. I
never have either, but at least with McDaniel there, we saw something from him.
But
McDaniel
nothing
leaves, and now we got Patricia and Judge.
And you know what? They actually looked like they were doing a pretty good job with Zappy. Like Zappy looked a lot better, whether it was Zappy being healthier, him picking up the play calls better, or they were trying to make it a little easier for Zappy than they were for Mac, whatever it was. He looked way more competent than Mac has. And I mean, I just don't think much of this team. Look at a couple of their wins. They beat the Jets last week with Zach Wilson when Zach Wilson had one of the worst games of any quarterback, and they beat the Jets by 5. They played Ellinger this week. A couple of weeks ago when they played the Bears kicked the crap out of them on Monday Night Football. When they were playing the Browns, that was an awful game from Stefanski. He just stopped running the ball. They beat up on Detroit when your Lions team was losing all of their secondary throughout that game, and Goff is terrible outdoors, and it's a game that looks a little bit better on paper. We thought that their game against Green Bay was against a good team. Green Bay's not very good. So now that loss against Green Bay in overtime, that doesn't look very good. They barely beat Pittsburgh. Like, this is not a good football team.
Not at all. My second takeaway is I'm afraid for Travis Etienne. I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. The most usage he's got in college, he averaged 18 touches a game. What happened the year after? He got hurt, missed all of next season for the Jaguars, missed his rookie year. This is his first year back. Since Robinson's been traded, he is averaging 29 touches a game. We saw what happened to CMC with him getting so many touches and his body just breaking down a couple years. And if he wasn't traded, that probably would have happened this year again with Carolina. Etienne is smaller than CMC.
I know.
I think if he's continuously getting 28, 29, 30 touches a game, he's not going to make it through the season.
That's why we kept talking about James Robinson with them. It's not that James Robinson is like a better running back than Etienne. They're different, and they complement each other well because you could put Robinson right up the gut. You can get a little bit more creative with Etienne. His numbers look great. How long is this going to sustain?
Yeah, and that's the worry. He's 5'10", small dude. I'm really worried about him. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see like what happens the next couple of weeks if we see a decline in his production and everything. Third takeaway.
Yeah. Third takeaway, keep an eye on Josh Allen's health. We saw at the end of the game he was a little bit banged up. Now, for the Bills, their offense has struggled a little bit for 6 straight quarters now. They didn't play well last week. They didn't play well at the end of the Packers game, the second half there. And the thing that I'm kind of worried about for them, they don't run the ball well other than Josh Allen, right? Their rushing attack is a lot of Josh Allen running. When you look at where they stack up comparison in like rushing yards per game, they're not bad. They're like 13th, and their number is 124 yards rushing per game, but 50 of that is Josh Allen. So if you take those and think about it, you take 50 yards of Josh Allen rushing out, you're not going to be able to add it with Case Keenum, right? You'll add a little bit more rushing. It won't be just minus 50 because they'll give the balls to the running backs a little bit more, but a lot of their running comes from Allen. And if you take that big chunk of it out, that's going to put them towards the bottom of the league in, is running the ball. And one of their weaknesses right now also, they don't really have that number 2 wide receiver. Everybody thought it was going to be Gabe Davis this year. He's not consistent. He's a big play guy. They have Diggs, and then they have a couple other like number 3 kind of slot guys or home run hitters, but they don't really have that number 2 receiver. So if Allen's out, they won't be able to run the ball quite as much, and they don't have that other receiver to lean on. So that's something you really got to keep an eye on. Things can happen quickly in the NFL. You can go last week, look like you're the Bills and you're the best team in the league, and all of a sudden you lose to the Jets, Josh Allen gets hurt, and then boom, like
just free fall.
They don't, there's not very many teams that can win without your starting quarterback. But the teams like the Chiefs and the Bills, where your starting quarterback picks up the rest of your team and carries you, you definitely can't win without your starting quarterback.
I mean, I'm just looking at their schedule right now. Vikings, Browns, Lions, Patriots, Jets, Finns, Bears, Bengals, Patriots. There's only a couple,
That's not easy. And the
Lions,
games that you
Bears.
thought might have been easier a few weeks ago are starting to look harder, right? The Jets game doesn't look like a cakewalk. The Bears have an identity now, right? They're running the.
We need to remember the Ravens last year were one of the best. I think they had the second best record in the NFL. Lamar goes down. He went down this week too. This was the week he went down, week 9.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they didn't make the playoffs. Stuff can happen pretty quick.
Well, where were the Bengals? We weren't talking about the Bengals at this point at all last year. The Chiefs were the Chiefs and Bills both were struggling at this sort of time last year too.
So let me ask you this. I'm pulling up the odds right now when we're talking this out and looking at their schedule. At what would be the number you would need to buy, and I'm pulling up the number right now, for the Bills not to make the playoffs?
It'd have to be pretty high. What is the number right now?
I'm trying to find it right now.
But it's not a bad dart throw, because like we said, it's not going to take a lot of things. Like if Josh Allen plays in a game that he's not healthy for and gets hurt, all of a sudden you're now in a division where the Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots all are competent, and they've all stacked a pretty good amount of wins. Even if they're not great football teams, they've all stacked wins recently.
Yeah. The first book I looked at, it's been taken off the book.
Because of the health. That's why right now people are doing what you're just saying. They're going to look at it.
My next takeaway, Ravens are legit with the addition of Roquan Smith. Browser came back, adding him, Smith, McQueen. That's a legit linebacking core. You're getting Williams back in the secondary. Those guys have been banged up. They're coming back. Njoku, the pass rusher, getting healthy. Campbell getting healthy. We saw how important Houston is being able to rush the quarterback. This defense is legit. And if they can just be competent on offense, I think this team's coming out of the AFC right now.
Yeah.
With what they've done defensively, Lamar's explosive. If Likely, maybe do a lot of 2 tight end sets, Likely and Andrews, kind of like the Patriots used to do back in the day. I think this team's live. If you watch Gino and I on the BTV preview show, we gave out Ravens 20 to 1 to win it all. I locked them in 7-1 to come out of the AFC. I absolutely love the position there.
I completely agree. If I had to pick a team, if I had to bet on a team right now, it would be them, right? Because what are they, probably the third choice in the AFC right now?
They're the third choice to come out
behind the Bills and the Chiefs.
Yep, it goes Bills 1, Chiefs 2, Ravens 3.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about value, I wouldn't bet the Chiefs or the Bills, right? I need a little bit more value than what they represent. The Ravens feel like the team that would offer you really good value.
Now we're at everyone's favorite part of the show, bets. We're here to make some money. If you guys have been watching, you've been tailing, everyone that's been coming on has done a lights out job of handing out some winners. I love every single play that Gino's handing out. Gino, what's your first play?
Yeah, first play, Panthers plus the 3 this week. So Panthers are coming off a game where they got absolutely crushed. They looked really, really bad. The Bengals were destroying them. Honestly, that was one of those instances where I'm not going to take a lot out of that game because Mixon just ran all over them. They got destroyed. PJ looked pretty bad. What we did see at the end of the game was Baker actually came in and looked the best he's looked for them so far. They're playing against the Panthers are playing against an Atlanta team that ranks 29th in pass defense DVOA. They're bad against the pass. You can actually throw the ball, move the ball a little bit against them. I like your guy, Terrace Marshall, as a possible play this week. They've been getting him more and more involved. This is going to be a good spot to attack them. But a key number that I'm looking at in this game is this year, matchups between divisional opponents road favorites are 6-11 against the spread in those games. And that's another one right here where you have a team favored on the road in a divisional game where we have a Panthers team that's probably a little bit undervalued because they got beat up last week. And in those games, the under is 13-3-1. So divisional game, road game for Atlanta, short week. This probably spells a big time under also. I like Carolina. I mean, the total in this game is only 43.5. It's actually bumped up a little bit from where it opened. Give me Carolina +3. I wouldn't mind playing the under also in here.
How do you feel? I just pulled it up right now. He's about at 35.5 for his receiving yard props.
I like that.
That's Marshall.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that one a lot too. Yeah, I'm going to be on the Panthers too. And with them getting killed, it wouldn't surprise me if we get a 3.5 in the market.
Me neither. 3 was the number that I wanted to grab for sure. I don't know if it's going to dip down, but I wanted to make sure we got the 3 just in case, you get yourself the field goal there. No problem sprinkling a little bit of a money line in on there, but I think this is a close game, low scoring game. Panthers are a little undervalued right now. Give me the Panthers. You know me. Those are 2 of my guys over there. We got Baker. We got
Darnold
Sammy seeing ghosts. Sammy seeing some ghosts.
Darnold came off of
IR, right?
IR. He's off IR.
Yeah.
He's alive.
They actually had PJ start over Baker and Darnold last week. Both of those guys could have started. PJ started. He only went 3 of 10 though. I mean, he did not look good. But again, I'm just going to put a line right through that game, and I'm going to say that because of that, we're getting a little more value on Carolina coming out of it.
Yeah, I like Carolina here. I think anything 3 or over, I think that's an absolute buy.
So Marshall has 3 games with 80% or more snaps. He's now finished as a top 30 PPR wide receiver the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks, he's had 92 snaps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like him a lot. I like him a lot. I actually just put that one in now when we're talking. Yeah. And I'll be on the Panthers as well. My first bet, I actually locked this one in at 4.5. When I wrote this out, it was at 4. It's actually dipped down to 3.5. Still like it. Brownies, give them to me. Give me my Cleveland Brownies. I'm a Cleveland Brown fan now.
Yeah,
I like this team a lot. Stefanski, 58% ATS as a road dog. Dolphins just gave up 252 yards running versus the Bears. Defense was on the field for 70 plays, which is absolutely absurd. Browns are coming off a bye. They'll be more rested. They have a huge advantage in the trenches. And I really feel that their defensive metrics are a little bit off cue because of the injuries that they've had to Garrett, linebacker core, safety room, and Clowney. Clowney is insanely underrated against the run and getting to the quarterback. I think the Browns are going to lean on Chubb, lean on Hunt. I think they're going to straight up win. I'm a sprinkle on the money line. I love the Cleveland Browns this week. I
like that. Miami's 27 defensive DVOA too. They're another team that I'm going to try to pick on a little bit too, right? Like, I don't think they're quite as good as some of their metrics would suggest. So I completely agree with you. I don't mind that at all. That feels like a fantastic spot.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Next one. We're
on the same one
thing here.
Yeah. This is a Tomlin spot, right?
This is the Mike Tomlin spot of spots.
Off the bye here, you kind of forgot about the Steelers right now, and you could have caught a 3 recently, and maybe we can get back to 3 here. But you have a New Orleans team that you just don't feel great about them. There's been some buzz that we could possibly see Watt returning soon, and I think that could lift them, even if he's not here, just him practicing and getting ready for a return. And what's nice is, so you have a team that made a quarterback change, and now they have a bye. Now they come off a bye, right? There was a lot of weird stuff going on with Pickett, with Trubisky. Pickett got banged up a little bit, but they made the change in the middle. Now they'll have a little bit of time to just have a better offense. I don't love Pittsburgh overall as a team, but this just totally feels like a Tomlin spot here as a home dog.
Plus, gives Najee Harris time to get healthy. He's been banged up. Here are the Tomlin stuff. Niner day was more rest. 58% ATS. At home, 9 days of rest. 63% ATS. This guy is a covering absolute machine at home. Dalton is only 46% ATS as a road favorite, 25% ATS versus Tomlin. This Saints team has been a huge disappointment in my eyes. I was really high on them. I thought we were going to see a lot more. They had some key injuries. Davenport got hurt, left the game. Their starting center, McCoy, who was playing a good game, got hurt, left the game. Warner, one of their starting linebackers, got hurt. They're a little banged up. We got a Steelers team coming off a bye. You mentioned Watt coming back. Absolutely love that. Plus, with no Michael Thomas, no Jarvis Landry, teams are now focusing on Chris Olave, who I think is going to be good in this league, but he's not where he is to be a number one, and teams solely focusing on him. This Saints team completely struggling on offense. Tomlin, home dog, Saints banged up, Watt coming back. Give me the Steelers +3. Lock that bad boy in. I think some books are driven it down to 2. I know PointsBet, which is the lovely sponsor of the show, they're hanging a 3 still. So go over to PointsBet, lock in that
3.
Get
that 3.
Last bet.
Got to do it. I'm sorry to do it to you. With your Lions. I'm sorry, but I wanted to get this number at 3 with the Bears. I wanted to try to jump in, and mainly because I'm looking at this Lions-Bears game coming up this week, and it's supposed to be pretty bad weather in Chicago, right, this week, and I'm leaning on a cold game. The way the Bears have been running the ball recently, the Lions in a situation with Goff, with possible bad weather, I think the Lions might be a little high coming off of their win last week, right? Kind of like a bad team. Can they put a couple together? And we've both been very, very high on everything the Bears have been doing recently. I've been so impressed with them. Justin Fields just broke Michael Vick's regular season quarterback rushing record, 178 yards, 11.9 yards per carry, 13 carries, picked up a first down, 7 conversions that were, he had 8 carries that were 3rd or 4th down. 7 of them got a first down. 8 of his runs gained 10+ yard. He had a 61-yard touchdown run on 3rd and 5. There were 7 runs that were designed. All of them gained a first down. Just incredible. And the Lions are 27th in run defensive DVOA. That's who they play this week. I think they're going to have a really tough time stopping the run here. And I think it's a good spot if you can get a field goal or under. So I like them with the field goal this week. And I thought this number might move up to 3.5 maybe. So I wanted to jump on it now.
Dave is asking, do you think Claypool is worth a prop bet this week, giving him knowing more of the Bears offense?
Absolutely. And throw him in a DFS lineup too, right? Throw him in one of yours. He can get a touchdown or 2. I think they will really try to get him more involved, because what's happening now, when you run the ball so well, teams are going to start to try to stack the box against this team, right? Because we know they're pounding the run. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to make it a lot easier for Justin Fields when he has a guy like Claypool and he can have one-on-one coverage over there and he can just go up and over and give him some jump balls. So I think the more and more we see Claypool towards the end of this year, he could be a really sneaky guy that can maybe help some teams win a few weeks and maybe help win you some money in DFS.
I totally agree with the statement. If the Bills allow Josh Allen to play the next 2 weeks,
I completely agree.
Brain is slightly tear. I don't think they realize. Completely agree with that statement. For them, the goal is something bigger than beating the Vikings in week 10. They want to be healthy. But the thing is, though, that we need to monitor, this is where value could be created with them with the Super Bowl future.
Yeah.
If they lose to the Vikings, and then they drop a couple games because Allen is sitting out.
That division is
some value could be had.
We just sort of assumed the Bills were going to win this division, right? But now you look at the standings, and all of a sudden they're 6-2. They're being chased by the entire division. Everybody is right behind the Bills. Like, based on record, the AFC East is the best division in football. All 4 teams are over 500. The Bills have a half-game lead over the Jets. And the Dolphins both. They have a half game lead because both of those two teams beat them.
Yep.
That's the problem that they have too, is like they got to be careful. You lose another game to one of those two teams and you don't have tiebreakers against them.
Yeah, so they are in a tricky spot, but the end goal is way more important. I think they totally need to sit him and get him healthy.
If you're the Bills, you don't care. Like, if you showed up in the first game of the playoffs with a healthy team, you feel like you could beat anybody going on the road anywhere doing that, right? You can't beat them without Josh Allen.
Yep. You just can't. My last bet, I got to do it, man. There's two coaches that I absolutely love taking as dogs and fading as favorites. Number one, we just talked about him, my boy Mike Tomlin. Number two, my boy Vrabel.
Yep.
So I locked in the Broncos. I locked him in this morning at +3. Vrabel, 46% ATS is a favorite, 45% ATS is a home favorite. You look at Wilson on the other side, 67% ATS is a dog, 66% ATS is a dog, as a road dog. I know everyone's like, well, Eric, that's when he was with Seattle. Let's just look at this year. As a dog this year, they're 3-1 ATS.
Yeah.
So they're complete and utter like shit show there with what's going on in Denver. Excuse my language, but they are still covering. And this Denver defense is legit. It is one of the top ones per DVOA in every single metric.
Yep.
I don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball. And I think they're going to trouble this Titans offense. And you just got to think of it like this. You're either going to play Ryan Tannehill, who has a high ankle sprain, who's going to be very limited with his movement that you're going to be able to get to, or you're going to be playing a rookie who, this isn't one game, this is 2 games. 11 for 26, 135 yards with a QBR of 6.5.
And it shows you that they don't trust him because they're not even letting him in any situation to make any plays whatsoever. I think it's a really good spot here because everybody saw that game too, right? It was Sunday Night Football. So everybody saw that game. And coming off of it, even though they lost, everybody talks about how great a coach Vrabel is. Damn, he should be in line for, coach of the year, right? Like that was like a buzz coming out of that game. Now, late night game, you played deeper into the game too, right? Went into overtime, you played extra plays there. Now all of a sudden you got to come back on a shortish week for you after you played late there on Sunday night. You play a team that's coming off the bye. I mean, how many up downs and stretches do you think Russell Wilson was doing over these last couple of weeks during bye week? I mean, this guy, he's all stretched out, right? Like he's
according to TMZ, he was chilling at Cabo. So yeah, so I love the Broncos here. I just think it's a good spot.
It does feel like it.
Right spot coming back home. Titans. This is probably the ultimate high that the Titans have been all year.
Yeah.
Gino, I'd like to thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, best place is on Twitter. It's me, Gino B. I post everything there. I post podcasts anytime I do videos, anytime we do stuff for Better Than Vegas. The live streams there. Eric and I do a college football show on every Friday at 6:00 p.m. Eastern time, where we preview some of the biggest games for the weekend. And then on Sunday, we host a show at 11:00 a.m. Eastern time at BTV Bets. Give us a follow there. Check me out. It's me, Gino B. And then download the podcast. That's What G Said podcast. Thanks, David. We had a really good week last week. I think it was the biggest week I ever had as far as podcast listens last week, coming off Breeders' Cup shows. And then you joined me to talk NFL. So a big thanks to everyone who checked it out. And if you like Eric and you like deep dive analysis, you'll probably enjoy my show also, because we talk just like this about all the football games every week, college games, horse racing, same sort of thing. I kind of give this same analysis about the TV shows that I recap and the wrestling shows that I dive into.
He does wrestling. He does
Star Wars, Marvel
shows.
Yeah. So anything right now, we're talking Andor, just finished up with She-Hulk.
Yeah.
All of it, sports and pop culture.
And the thing I like about Gino is this. Now, you may not remember this. This is like, if you ask him a question, he will always answer you. Like, it was either Friday or Saturday, I sent you a text message. Hey, I think this horse is live. What do you think? And you replied with an honest answer. And I'm going to rewind, I don't even know, 9-10 years ago when you worked for TVG. I even messaged you on Facebook once. And I was like, I didn't even know you at the time. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is there anything I should add? And like, son of a gun, you replied to me. So like, if you guys have any questions,
always
just shoot him. He'll be straight up. My boy, he gave out a play for the Kentucky Derby that paid for my boy Dan's vacation to Florida. So he's always there to help, knows his stuff. Make sure to give him a follow and make sure to subscribe to the That's What G Said podcast on Apple Podcast, SoundCloud. Are you on Spotify too?
SoundCloud, Google. We're not on Spotify. I'll work on that for some reason. We're on there, but Google Pods, Apple, SoundCloud, and I always post all of our segments that Eric joins me with on social media too. So give me a follow there on Twitter, and let's make some money this weekend, buddy.
Let's make some money. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Sterling from Silver Star Sports will be the guest. Until next week, boys and girls.